I didn't believe in this stuff until it happened to me. I'm not saying that like I was some hardcore skeptic or anything. I just never spent time thinking about it. Ghosts, watchers, whatever people talk about at night when they can't sleep. I always figured there was an explanation. Bad wiring. Stress. Too much caffeine. Your brain filling in gaps when it's tired. That was me. I lived alone back then. Small apartment. Second floor. Nothing special. One bedroom, thin walls, cheap carpet that always smelled faintly like old dust no matter how much I vacuumed. I worked late shifts, so my life ran backwards compared to most people. I'd get home around midnight, sometimes closer to 1, heat up leftovers, scroll on my phone, then crash when the world was already quiet. Honestly, I liked that part. The quiet. There's a certain calm that hits around 2 or 3 a.m. No traffic. No neighbors moving around. Just that low hum buildings make when everything else shuts up. The fridge cycling on and off. Pipes knocking once in a while. The kind of sounds you don't even notice until everything else disappears. That's where this starts. In that space. I remember the first night because nothing actually happened. That's what messes with me now. I came home like usual. Kicked my shoes off by the door. Dropped my keys in the bowl on the counter. Same routine I'd had for months. I microwaved some cold pasta, ate standing up, didn't even bother turning on the TV. I was tired in that hollow way, like my body was done but my brain was still buzzing. I went to bed around 2:30. I always slept with the door closed. Not for any reason. Just habit. I liked the room dark. No street light glow, no hallway light. Just black. Sometime later, I woke up. Not fully. Just that half-wake state where you're aware you're in bed but your body doesn't move yet. I could hear the clock on my nightstand ticking. Cheap plastic thing. Loud if you paid attention to it. Tick. 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 At first, that was it. Then I noticed something else. Breathing. Not mine. I wasn't panicking. Not yet. It was soft. Slow. Like someone breathing through their nose while trying not to make noise. I remember thinking it had to be me. Sometimes you hear your own breath differently when you're half asleep. So I held mine. The breathing kept going. That's when my eyes opened. The room was dark, but not pitch black. There's always a little light. Moon through the blinds. The glow from the digital clock numbers. Enough to see shapes. Nothing was there. No movement. No shadow where there shouldn't be one. Just my dresser, my door, the corner of my bed. The breathing stopped. And I swear, I felt stupid. Like my brain had played a trick on me and I almost bought into it. I rolled onto my side, facing the wall, and let myself fall back asleep. The next morning, I didn't think about it at all. That's important. People always ask why I didn't freak out right away. Why I didn't move out. Why I didn't call someone. But that's not how it happens. Not like in movies. It starts small. Quiet. Easy to ignore. The second time was a few nights later. Same deal. Late shift. Same routine. Same bed. Same dark room. This time, I woke up because my arm felt cold. Not the room. Just my arm. Like the air was different around it. Cooler. Still. I pulled it closer to my body without opening my eyes. I remember feeling annoyed more than scared. I had work again in a few hours. I didn't want to be awake. That's when I heard the floor. A creak. Very light. My apartment floors always creaked. Old building. But this one was slow. Deliberate. Like pressure being applied and held there, not a quick step. I opened my eyes again. The door was still closed. The clock said 2:47 a.m. I remember that because the numbers burned into my brain a little longer than they should have. Red LED glow. Too bright in the dark. Another creak. Closer this time. I didn't move. Didn't sit up. Didn't even breathe deep. I just stared at the door. Waiting for something logical. A neighbor. Pipes. The building settling. Nothing happened. No footsteps leaving. No follow-up sound. Just silence. After a while, I fell asleep again. Not because I felt safe. Just because my body gave up. The next day, I noticed my bedroom door. There were faint marks near the handle. Not scratches exactly. More like smudges. Like someone with dirty fingers had touched it and wiped them away. I told myself it was from before. From moving in. From the last tenant. From me. I wiped them off with my sleeve and forgot about it. That's the pattern. Forgetting. Things stayed quiet for a bit after that. Almost like whatever it was wanted me to relax. Get comfortable again. Then little things started changing. My keys weren't always in the bowl where I left them. Sometimes they'd be on the counter instead. Or on the small table by the couch. I told myself I was tired. That I was spacing out. That happens when you work nights. Once, I found my bathroom light on in the morning. I never left it on. Ever. It buzzed, and I hated that sound. But there it was. On. Like someone had been in there recently. Still, I didn't tell anyone. Because how do you explain that without sounding messed up? The worst part wasn't the sounds or the objects. It was the feeling. That sense that the apartment wasn't empty anymore, even when it looked like it was. Like the air had weight to it. Like silence wasn't just silence, it was something holding its breath. I started sleeping with one ear uncovered. Started waking up around the same time every night. Always between 2:40 and 3 a.m. Always tired. Always wired. One night, as I lay there staring at the door, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The breathing I'd heard before? It wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from the other side of the door. Close. Too close. Like someone standing there, leaning in, listening. I didn't open it. I don't mess with that. I just lay there, counting the seconds between each breath I could hear, waiting for morning to come. And the worst part? Morning always came. Which somehow made it feel even more real. After a while, you stop questioning why you're tired. It just becomes part of you. Like background noise. Like the hum of the fridge or the traffic you don't hear anymore. I'd wake up feeling like I never actually slept, but I'd still drag myself through the day. Coffee. Work. Come home. Repeat. That's how it gets you. Routine makes things feel normal, even when they're not. I started noticing patterns. Not big ones. Small, annoying ones that didn't mean anything on their own. The clock, for example. I'd wake up at night, not startled, not gasping, just awake. Eyes open. Body heavy. And every time I checked the clock, it was somewhere between 2:43 and 2:49. Almost always 2:47. At first, I thought my brain was doing that thing where it remembers the times that stand out and ignores the rest. Confirmation bias. I'd heard about that somewhere. Felt smart telling myself that. But then I tested it. I stopped checking the clock. I turned it away from the bed so I couldn't see the numbers. Just the ticking. I figured if I didn't look, the pattern would break. It didn't. I'd still wake up at the same time. I didn't know the exact minute anymore, but my body knew. There's a certain feeling that hits at that hour. The night feels thinner. Like you could tear it if you pushed hard enough. That's when the sounds started changing. Not louder. Just clearer. I could hear the building settling, but it sounded closer than it should have. Like it was happening inside my walls instead of around them. Sometimes I heard something that almost sounded like fabric shifting. Slow. Careful. I'd tell myself it was air moving through vents. The problem was, my apartment didn't have vents like that. One night, I heard a footstep. No creak this time. A full step. Heel. Then wait. It came from the living room. I remember gripping my blanket so tight my hands hurt. I didn't sit up. Didn't call out. I just stared at the dark shape of the door, waiting for the handle to move. It never did. Instead, the step happened again. Same spot. Same pressure. Like someone was testing the floor. Then nothing. The silence afterward felt thick. Like it was pressing down on my chest. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until my lungs started burning. Eventually, I exhaled. And somewhere in the apartment, something else exhaled too. That was the first time I almost broke. Almost. The next day, I walked through every room with all the lights on. I checked closets. Under the bed. Behind the shower curtain. Even though I knew how stupid that was. Even though there was nowhere someone could hide without me noticing. Everything looked normal. Too normal. That's when denial really kicked in. Hard. I started explaining things before they even happened. I'd hear a noise and immediately think, old building. I'd wake up tired and think, bad sleep schedule. I'd find something moved and think, you're losing focus. I stopped trusting my own memory. That part messes with you more than fear ever could. One morning, I found my bedroom door open. I know I closed it. I always closed it. That was my thing. But there it was. Open just enough to see the hallway. Just enough to let that darker darkness bleed into my room. I stood there for a long time before touching it. When I finally pushed it shut, the hinges didn't squeak. They always squeaked. That night, I left the door open on purpose. I wanted to prove something to myself. That the door wasn't special. That nothing happened because of it. That I was still in control. I lay in bed staring out into the hallway. The light from the living room barely reached the bedroom, so the hall looked like a tunnel. Long flat. Empty. The clock ticked. 2-something a.m. I didn't know exactly when it happened, but my eyes started to burn from not blinking. I felt stupid again. Childish. Like I was daring something that didn't exist. That's when the hallway got darker. Not suddenly. Slowly. Like something moved between me and the far wall. Blocking what little light there was. I told myself it was my eyes adjusting. I told myself a lot of things. The shape didn't move again. It just stayed there. Tall. Narrow. Wrong in a way I couldn't explain without sounding insane. I didn't see details. No face. No limbs. Just the absence of space where space should have been. After a while, I rolled onto my side and faced the wall. Same as before. Same move. Same logic. If I don't look at it, it's not real. Behind me, the floor creaked. Once. Closer than it had ever been. I felt the mattress dip slightly, like weight settling near the edge of the bed. Not enough to see. Just enough to feel. I didn't turn around. I don't know how long I lay there. Minutes. Hours. My whole body felt numb, like it had shut down everything except hearing. I heard breathing. Right behind me. Slow. Patient. Like it had all the time in the world. Eventually, morning came again. Light through the blinds. Birds outside. Cars starting up. The weight was gone. The bed was normal. I called in sick that day. First time I ever did that just because I was scared. I thought about staying with a friend. Thought about a hotel. Thought about moving out entirely. But every option felt dramatic. Overreacting. Like admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. So I stayed. Because part of me still believed this was just exhaustion. Stress. My mind turning on itself in the quiet. That belief didn't last much longer. Because that night, when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed I was lying in my bed, staring at the door. And in the dream, it opened. And something leaned in and whispered my name. In my own voice. After the dream, sleep stopped feeling like rest. It felt more like losing consciousness and hoping nothing bad happened while I was gone. I started keeping lights on. Not all of them. Just enough to make the apartment feel less hollow. The kitchen light. The lamp in the living room. I still slept in the dark, but the glow leaking under the bedroom door made it easier to breathe. Didn't help much. I was still waking up around the same time every night. My body did it on its own now. Like an alarm clock I never set. I'd open my eyes already tense, already listening. The clock stayed turned away, but I could hear it ticking. Slow. Even. Mocking, almost. I tried changing my routine. I stayed up later. Fell asleep on the couch a few times with the TV on low. I figured if I wasn't in the bed, maybe whatever pattern this was would break. One night, I woke up on the couch with my neck stiff and my mouth dry. The TV was still on, some infomercial playing to an empty room. The volume was lower than I remembered setting it. And the hallway light was off. I know it was on when I fell asleep. I remember because I checked it twice. That light had become my anchor. Seeing it from the couch meant the apartment still made sense. I didn't move right away. I lay there staring at the dark hallway, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. Just that familiar, heavy silence. The kind that feels like it's leaning toward you. I sat up slowly. My joints cracked loud in the quiet, and I froze, waiting for a response. None came. I walked to the hallway and turned the light back on. My hand was shaking so bad I missed the switch the first time. I didn't sleep again that night. After that, things started feeling staged. Like the apartment was being reset when I wasn't looking. I'd find cabinet doors open that I never used. The one above the fridge. The one under the sink. Always just one. Never all of them. Like a reminder. Once, I found a chair pulled out from the dining table. Just a few inches. Enough to notice. Enough to make my chest tighten. I stopped inviting people over. Not because I thought something would happen to them. But because the apartment felt different when someone else was there. Quieter in a bad way. Like it was waiting. And I didn't want to explain why I kept staring down the hallway. Or why I flinched every time the floor creaked. I started wearing headphones at night. Soft music. White noise. Anything to blur the silence. It helped me fall asleep faster, but it didn't keep me asleep. I'd wake up with the headphones still on, music playing, but I could hear something underneath it. A low sound. Almost like movement. One night, I pulled the headphones off. Instant regret. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. Just a faint shifting noise, coming from the corner of the room near the door. Like someone adjusting their stance. Like fabric brushing against fabric. I whispered, "Hello?" I don't know why I did that. Reflex, I guess. Like calling into the dark when you know you shouldn't. Nothing answered. But the sound stopped. That was worse. From then on, it felt closer every night. The breathing came back. Sometimes from the hallway. Sometimes from inside the room. Once, I was sure it was right above me, like someone leaning over the bed, breathing down. I never opened my eyes when that happened. I didn't want to know what I'd see. I stopped using my bedroom during the day. It felt wrong in the light. Like a place that had rules I didn't understand anymore. I'd change clothes in the bathroom. I'd avoid looking at the bed. I started sleeping with my phone in my hand. Screen unlocked. Bright. Like I could call someone if I needed to. I never did. Because I didn't know what I'd say. I think something's watching me doesn't sound real when you say it out loud. The worst night came after a long shift. I was exhausted in that deep, bone-level way. I barely remember lying down. When I woke up, my arm was numb. Not cold this time. Just numb. Like it had fallen asleep. Except it wasn't under me. It was stretched out toward the edge of the bed. I didn't remember moving it there. I stared at my hand. My fingers were curled slightly, like they'd been holding something. I slowly pulled my arm back to my chest. As I did, I felt resistance. Not strong. Just enough to notice. Like something letting go. I yanked my arm back and sat up so fast I got dizzy. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. The room was empty. The door was closed. The clock, still turned away, ticked on. I stayed sitting up until the sun came up. Watching. Waiting. That morning, I noticed marks on my wrist. Not bruises. Not scratches. Indented lines. Like fingers had pressed there and stayed for a while. They faded after an hour. I started packing that day. Not fully. Just preparing. Putting things in boxes without sealing them. Like I needed an exit plan but wasn't ready to use it. Because part of me still believed leaving wouldn't fix it. That it wasn't the apartment. It was the time. 2:47 a.m. That moment when the world feels thin and empty and something else has room to step in. The last thing that happened before everything changed was small. So small I almost missed it. I woke up, like always. The apartment was silent. Too silent. No fridge hum. No ticking clock. Nothing. Then, from the other side of the bedroom door, I heard my own voice again. Not whispering this time. Just breathing. Slow. Calm. Like it was sleeping. Right outside my room. That was the night I stopped pretending. When I heard my own breathing on the other side of the door, something in me finally snapped loose. Not panic. Not screaming fear. Just this quiet understanding that whatever was happening wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It wasn't stress. It wasn't exhaustion. It wasn't my mind playing tricks. I lay there listening to it breathe, matching my rhythm almost perfectly. In and out. Slow. Calm. Like it knew exactly how I breathed when I was asleep. Like it had practiced. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. My eyes stayed fixed on the door handle. That cheap brass knob I twisted 1,000 times without thinking. I noticed every scratch on it. Every smudge. Every tiny reflection of the room warped in its curve. The breathing didn't get closer. It didn't leave either. It just stayed there. Waiting. I don't know how long it went on. Time felt weird. Like it wasn't moving forward the way it should. My phone was in my hand, screen dark now, battery probably dead. I didn't dare unlock it. The light felt dangerous somehow. Like it would give me away. At some point, the breathing stopped. Not abruptly. It slowed. Each breath farther apart than the last. Like someone drifting off. Then silence. I don't know what scared me more, the sound or the absence of it. Morning came eventually. It always did. Gray light creeping through the blinds. The normal sounds returning like nothing had happened. Cars. A dog barking somewhere. Someone slamming a door downstairs. I got up without looking at the door and went straight to the bathroom. I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked normal. Tired. Pale. Dark circles under my eyes. But still me. I half expected something to be wrong. My eyes different. My expression off. Something that would explain what I was hearing. There was nothing. That day, I finally told someone. Not everything. Just enough. I called my sister. I joked about not sleeping. About the apartment being creepy at night. About weird noises. I waited for her to laugh or brush it off. She didn't. She got quiet. Then she said, "You should come stay with me for a bit." Just like that. No questions. No teasing. No trying to explain it away. That scared me more than anything else. I told her I'd think about it. Hung up. Sat on the edge of the bed staring at the carpet. The indent was there. On the side of the mattress. A shallow dip, like someone had been sitting there for a while. I stood up fast, heart pounding, and pressed my hand into it. The mattress was warm. Not body heat warm. Room warm. Like it had never cooled down. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I dragged a blanket to the couch and lay there fully dressed, lights on, TV muted but glowing. I told myself if it came out of the hallway, I'd see it this time. I wouldn't let it stay hidden. I woke up anyway. Same time. That internal alarm dragging me up from sleep whether I wanted it or not. The TV was off. Not paused. Off. The screen was black, reflecting the room back at me. And in that reflection, I saw movement. Not behind me. Beside me. On the other end of the couch. The cushion was compressed, just like the bed had been. Slow. Steady. Like something had settled in and gotten comfortable. I didn't look directly. I stared at the reflection instead. At the dark shape where nothing should have been. It didn't have edges. It didn't have features. It was just wrong. Like a shadow that didn't match the light. The couch shifted slightly. Closer. I felt the blanket tug. Not pulled. Just adjusted. Like someone fixing it so it wouldn't slip. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop cold. It wasn't trying to scare me. It was taking care of me. Watching me sleep. Keeping its routine. I sat up so fast the couch bounced back into shape. The reflection showed nothing now. The room was empty. The hallway light was on. Everything looked normal. But I could still feel it. That awareness. That pressure in the air. Like someone standing just outside your personal space, waiting for you to notice. I grabbed my keys and wallet and left. Didn't shower. Didn't change. Didn't pack. I drove to my sister's place with the radio blasting just to drown out my own thoughts. I didn't feel relief when I got there. Just distance. Like stepping away from a fire that might still spread. I slept there for the first time in weeks. Not great. But I slept. No breathing. No footsteps. No waking up at 2:47. For a few days, I felt almost human again. The fear dulled. The edges softened. I started telling myself maybe it really was the apartment. Bad energy. Bad wiring. Bad memories. On the fourth night, I woke up on her couch. Same numb feeling. Same awareness. I checked my phone. 2:47 a.m. The guest room door was closed. And from the other side of it, I heard breathing. Slow. Patient. Familiar. That's when I understood. It wasn't attached to the place. It was attached to me. And wherever I went, wherever I slept, it knew exactly where to stand. Just out of sight. Just close enough to listen. I don't live with my sister anymore. I didn't stay long after that night. I couldn't. Once I realized it followed me, staying felt selfish. Like I was putting her in the path of something she didn't deserve. I never told her what really happened at 2:47 a.m. I just said I wasn't ready to be around people yet. That I needed space. She didn't argue. She hugged me longer than usual. That was months ago. Now I move a lot. Not dramatically. Not running. Just drifting. Short leases. Spare rooms. Cheap motels when I have to. I keep my stuff light. A backpack. A duffel bag. Nothing that takes time to pack. I don't sleep in the same place 2 nights in a row if I can help it. It still finds me. The pattern never changes. I fall asleep fine. I always do. Exhaustion takes care of that. It's the waking up that's the problem. That sudden awareness, like someone flipped a switch inside my head. 2:47 a.m. Every time. Sometimes I check the clock. Sometimes I don't need to. My body knows. My chest tightens a second before I open my eyes, like it's bracing for impact. And there it is. Not always the breathing anymore. Sometimes it's just the feeling. That pressure. That sense of presence. Like the air is occupied. I've learned something about it. It doesn't like being acknowledged. The few times I've moved suddenly, sat up, turned on a light, spoken out loud, it pulls back. Not far. Just enough. Like I broke an unspoken rule. So I stopped doing that. Now I lie still. Eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. I let it do what it does. Because that's the worst part. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't threaten me. It doesn't rush. It just observes. Listens. Waits. Sometimes I feel the mattress dip. Sometimes I feel warmth near my shoulder. Once, I felt fingers brush my wrist again, light as static, like it was checking something. Counting. Confirming. I don't know what it wants, and that scares me more than if it wanted something obvious. No scratches. No bruises. No marks anyone else could see. Just the slow erosion of sleep. Of certainty. Of privacy. I stopped talking about it to anyone. People start watching you differently when you tell them you're afraid of something you can't describe. Their eyes change. Their voices get careful. I don't want that. I've tried everything people suggest when they don't believe you but want to sound helpful. Sleeping with lights on. Sleeping with noise. Sleeping during the day. Medication. Alcohol. Meditation. Nothing stops it. The time stays the same. The presence stays the same. I even tried not sleeping at all once. Stayed up all night, eyes burning, hands shaking, telling myself I'd beat it that way. At 2:47 a.m., the room still changed. The air still thickened. And I felt it standing behind me while I sat wide awake on the edge of the bed. That was when I realized something else. It doesn't need me asleep. It just prefers me quiet. Lately, it's been closer. Not physically. Personally. I catch myself breathing in sync with it without meaning to. I'll notice my inhale matching something just outside my awareness. When I change my rhythm, it adjusts too. Like a mirror that's half a second delayed. Sometimes I wonder if it's learning me. Or if it already knows me better than I know myself. A few nights ago, something new happened. I woke up like always. Same time. Same heaviness. Same stillness. But this time, the breathing was coming from inside my chest. Not mine. I could feel my lungs moving, but the rhythm wasn't mine. It was too slow. Too controlled. Like someone else was pacing it. I focused hard and took a sharp breath. The rhythm broke. For a second, I swear I felt disappointment. Not anger. Not frustration. Just patience being tested. Since then, I've been afraid of falling asleep too deeply. Afraid of what happens when I'm not paying attention. Afraid of the moment my guard drops completely. Because I'm starting to lose track of where my thoughts end and something else begins. I'll catch myself thinking things I don't remember starting. Standing in doorways without realizing I walked there. Sitting upright in bed before I remember waking up. Once, I found myself standing in front of a mirror at 3 a.m., staring at my own reflection like I was waiting for it to do something first. It didn't. But I felt watched from behind. Always from behind. I don't know how this ends. I don't know if it does. Maybe this is just my life now. Measuring time by a single minute in the night. Sleeping in fragments. Living around something invisible that knows my routines better than I do. Maybe one night I won't wake up at 2:47. And that's what scares me most. Because if there's ever a night when I don't open my eyes, I don't know who will. If you're listening to this late at night, alone, and something about this feels familiar, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I hope it's not. I hope you roll over, turn off the story, and sleep through the night without ever thinking about it again. But if you wake up and the room feels heavier than it should, if the silence feels occupied, if you check the time and it's 2:47 a.m., don't panic. Don't move too fast. Just breathe. It's probably already listening anyway. I stopped checking clocks after that. Not because I didn't want to know the time, but because knowing didn't change anything anymore. Whether I saw the numbers or not, my body still reacted the same way. That slow tightening in my chest. That sense of being pulled upward out of sleep, like a hand gently lifting my chin. I don't need a clock to tell me when it's there. I feel it before my eyes even open. Lately, it's been harder to tell where I am when I wake up. Not physically, I usually know the room, the ceiling, the shape of the shadows, but mentally. There's this fog that lingers longer than it used to. Like my thoughts are arriving late. Sometimes I wake up already calm. That scares me more than the fear ever did. Because fear meant I was still reacting. Still myself. Now it feels accepted. Like part of me has learned the routine and decided to stop resisting. Like how you stop flinching when you live near train tracks long enough. I still move around. Still change places. But the nights blur together now. Different ceilings, same darkness. Different beds, same weight settling near me. It doesn't always stand behind doors anymore. Sometimes it's already in the room when I wake up. Not visibly. Never visibly. But close. So close I can feel the warmth of it without touching. Like standing next to someone in a crowded elevator, aware of their presence without looking. I've noticed something else too. It doesn't feel curious anymore. It feels familiar. Like it knows what I'm going to think before I think it. Like it's already there when my mind wanders into darker places. Like it's been listening longer than I've been aware of it. I tried recording myself sleeping once. I don't know why. Desperation, maybe. Proof. Something solid I could point to and say, see? I'm not losing it. I set my phone on the nightstand, camera facing the bed, screen off. Plugged in so it wouldn't die. I told myself I wouldn't watch it unless something happened. Something always happens. The next morning, I watched the footage. Most of it was boring. Me turning over. Adjusting the blanket. Breathing. At 2:46 a.m., I stopped moving. At 2:47, the audio changed. Not a sound exactly. More like compression. Like the room got smaller. Like the silence thickened so much it distorted the microphone. Then my breathing slowed. Too slow. I watched myself lie there, chest rising and falling at a pace I knew I couldn't hold while awake. And the worst part? My mouth moved. Just slightly. Like I was whispering. There was no sound. I didn't finish the video. I deleted it and smashed the phone in the motel sink until the screen cracked and went black. I checked out early that morning without explaining why my hands were shaking. Since then, I don't record anything. Some things don't want witnesses. The boundaries are thinner now. I'll be awake during the day and feel it briefly, like a shadow passing through my thoughts. A pause. A moment where everything goes quiet inside my head, like someone leaned too close. I've caught myself standing still in public places, just listening. Once, in a grocery store aisle, I froze because for half a second, I couldn't tell if the breathing I heard was mine or not. I've started sleeping sitting up sometimes. back against the wall. Knees pulled in. Like that might make a difference. It doesn't. It adapts. That's the word that keeps coming back to me. Adaptation. Like it's learning how I try to protect myself and quietly adjusting its behavior. Like it's patient enough to wait me out. There was a night recently when it didn't come at 2:47. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. instead. The room felt wrong immediately. Off balance. Like the timing was deliberate. The presence was already there. Not waiting. Already settled. And for the first time, I felt something new from it. Attention. Focused. Direct. Undivided. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, and I understood something I hadn't let myself think before. It isn't just watching me. It's making space. Inside me. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. The drifting. The half-sleep. The constant awareness. I feel thinner somehow. Like parts of me are being worn down, smoothed over, made easier to fit around something else. Sometimes I wonder if this is how it starts. Not possession. Not control. Just coexistence. One presence slowly adjusting to another until there's no clear line between where one ends and the other begins. If that happens, I don't know if I'll notice right away. And that's why I'm telling this now. Not as a warning. Not as a confession. Just as a record. Because if there comes a night when I don't wake up afraid. When 2:47 comes and goes and I don't open my eyes. I want there to be proof that I was here before. That I noticed. That I resisted, at least for a while. If you're listening to this and you feel calm when you shouldn't. If the silence feels less empty than it used to. Pay attention. That calm isn't peace. It's familiarity. And once something feels familiar, it doesn't need to hide anymore. I don't mark days anymore. They blend together too easily, and keeping track just reminds me how little changes. Morning comes. Night comes. And somewhere in between, I pretend I'm still living a normal life. I still talk to people. Coworkers. Cashiers. Strangers who don't know anything about me. I nod, smile when I'm supposed to, answer questions on autopilot. On the outside, I probably look fine. Tired, maybe. Quiet. But fine. Inside, everything feels delayed. Like my reactions arrive a second too late. Like I'm always half a step behind my own thoughts. The nights are worse now because they're quieter in a different way. Not empty quiet. Occupied quiet. The kind where silence feels intentional, like someone chose it and is maintaining it. I don't even always wake up anymore. Sometimes I just become aware. No transition. No sense of sleep ending. Just suddenly knowing I'm not alone. Knowing I'm being observed from a place I can't see. And sometimes, I realize I've been aware for a while already. Those are the nights that scare me most. Because I don't know how long it's been there before I noticed. I started noticing gaps in my memory. Nothing dramatic. Just small missing pieces. I'll sit down somewhere and realize I don't remember walking there. I'll open my phone and see messages I don't remember typing. Normal messages. Casual. Nothing alarming. But they don't feel like mine. The wording is slightly off. Too calm. Too neutral. Like someone imitating how I usually sound but not quite getting the tone right. I tell myself it's stress. I still tell myself that. The thing is, it stopped standing behind me all the time. Sometimes it feels like it's right where I am. Not physically. Not like a body sharing space. More like a presence overlapping mine. Like two radio stations bleeding into each other. There are moments, brief ones, where my thoughts slow down and something else fills the silence. Not words. Not images. Just a sense of direction. Like an impulse that doesn't feel emotional or logical, just inevitable. Once, late at night, I felt the urge to sit up in bed and face the door. I didn't want to. But my body moved anyway. Not forced. Not stiff. Smooth. Natural. Like it was my idea. I sat there for a long time, breathing slowly, staring at the door, feeling oddly calm. The fear was gone. Replaced by something flatter. Something steady. That's when I realized the breathing I heard wasn't separate anymore. It was synchronized. Perfectly. I've stopped sleeping on beds when I can. Floors. Chairs. The car, once. But it doesn't matter. Where I am doesn't matter. How I sleep doesn't matter. It's not approaching anymore. It's settling. I think it's been with me longer than I realized. Longer than that apartment. Longer than the sounds and the shadows. I think 2:47 a.m. wasn't when it arrived. It was when it became noticeable. Like that's the moment when whatever keeps it quiet thins out just enough for it to surface. Like a tide pulling back. Some nights, I catch myself thinking about things I haven't thought about in years. Old memories. Places I forgot. Moments that don't feel emotional anymore, just available. Like they're being reviewed. Cataloged. There's no judgment in it. No cruelty. Just attention. I used to think attention was harmless. Comforting, even. Now I understand how invasive it can be when you can't escape it. A few nights ago, I woke up, or became aware, and the room felt different immediately. Not heavy. Clear. Like something had been cleaned out. The presence wasn't beside me. It was inside the awareness itself. And for the first time, I felt something like communication. Not a voice. Not words. More like a certainty placed gently into my mind. This is easier if you don't fight it. That thought didn't scare me. That's the problem. I stayed very still and let my breathing slow. I let the fear drain away. I let the calm spread. And the presence felt closer than ever before. Comfortable. Satisfied. When morning came, I didn't feel relieved. I felt disappointed. Like something unfinished had been interrupted. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if there's a final step or if this just continues, slowly, until the difference between me and it doesn't matter anymore. But I know this. If one night you wake up and the fear is gone. If the presence doesn't feel threatening anymore. If it feels normal, expected, almost welcome. That's not the end. That's the point where it doesn't need to stand behind you. Because it's already standing where you are. I don't remember deciding to stop fighting. That's the thing that keeps looping in my head. There was no moment where I sat up and thought, okay. I give up. No clear surrender. No dramatic collapse. It just happened. Like how you don't remember the exact second you fall asleep, only that you're suddenly not awake anymore. Resistance faded the same way. Quietly. I still tell myself I'm in control. I still use my name in my head. Still recognize my face when I pass mirrors or windows at night. But there's a delay now. A pause between seeing myself and feeling like it's me. Like I'm waiting for permission to react. The nights have changed again. The timing is looser. It doesn't always wake me exactly at 2:47 anymore. Sometimes it's 2:46. Sometimes 2:52. Small variations. Testing. Seeing how much it can shift without me noticing. I've stopped moving places as often. Not because it helped before, but because moving feels pointless now. Wherever I go, the space adapts too quickly. Hotels feel familiar after one night. New rooms lose their edges. Corners stop feeling sharp. Everything feels pre-worn. Like it's been used before. Sometimes I wake up already sitting upright. Back straight. Hands resting on my thighs. Breathing slow and steady. Calm in a way that doesn't feel earned. Those are the mornings I feel the most wrong. Because I don't remember waking up. I just remember being there. I started noticing changes in how people react to me. Not obvious ones. Nothing you could call out. Just hesitation. A half-second pause before they answer me. Eye contact that breaks too early. Or holds a little too long. Once, a cashier asked if I was okay. Not in a polite way. In a careful way. I said yeah. Of course I did. My voice sounded normal to me. Steady. Calm. Maybe a little flat. She didn't look convinced. At night, the presence doesn't hover anymore. It doesn't breathe near me or press into the mattress. It doesn't need to. It feels distributed now. Like it's everywhere my attention goes. If I focus on the sound of the air conditioner, it's there. If I focus on my own breathing, it's there too. Not separate. Not layered. Integrated. That word keeps coming up. Integration. I think it's been happening slowly on purpose. Like if it moved too fast, I'd notice. Panic. Break the pattern. But slow changes feel like personal growth. Like healing. Like adjustment. That's the trick. A few nights ago, something happened that made me realize how far this has gone. I woke up, or became aware, and the room felt empty. Not quiet. Empty. No pressure. No weight. No sense of observation. For a moment, I felt relief so sharp it almost hurt. My chest loosened. My shoulders dropped. I thought, it's gone. Then I realized something else. I didn't feel alone. Not the way I used to before all this started. The room felt empty because the presence wasn't outside me anymore. There was nothing left to feel. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart beating steadily, and tried to summon fear. Tried to remember what it felt like to be watched. I couldn't. That's when the thought arrived. Not spoken. Not intrusive. Just present. You don't need to look for me anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. We already understood each other. Since then, I've been afraid of mirrors again. Not because I expect to see something else looking back. But because sometimes I don't recognize the expression on my own face. It's not hostile. It's not blank. It's attentive. Like someone listening. Like someone waiting for instructions. I've caught myself standing still in dark rooms, head slightly tilted, listening to sounds that aren't there. Or maybe sounds that are too subtle to explain. I've started waking up earlier than usual. Just before dawn. That thin gray light where shadows lose their shape. I'll sit up and feel productive. Like there's something I should be doing, somewhere I should be. But there's never a clear destination. Just readiness. I don't dream much anymore. Or if I do, I don't remember it as dreams. They feel more like rehearsals. Movements without context. Standing. Walking. Waiting. Always waiting. I tried once, just once, to force the fear back. I lay in bed and thought about the early nights. The breathing behind the door. The mattress dipping. The whisper in my own voice. I felt a flicker of it. That old tightness. That old panic. And immediately, something settled over it. Smoothed it out. Like a hand pressing gently down on a raised surface until it lies flat again. The message was clear. Fear isn't useful anymore. I don't know what happens when the process finishes. If it finishes. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is what it wanted all along. Not my body. Not my life. Just access. A place to stand where no one else can see it. Inside awareness. Inside routine. Inside normal. If you've stayed with this story for a long time now, there's something I should tell you. Something I've avoided saying because I didn't want it to sound dramatic or manipulative. This isn't rare. I don't think I'm special. I think this happens more often than people realize. I think most people just never notice the transition. Or they explain it away as calm, as maturity, as emotional distance. I think some people don't wake up at 2:47 because they don't need to. They're already open. If tonight you feel quieter than usual, if your thoughts feel slower, smoother, if fear feels unnecessary, just be careful what you call peace. Because once something learns how to stay without being noticed, it never has to leave. I used to think there would be a moment where I could point to the change and say, that's when it happened. A clear line. Before and after. Something concrete enough to hold on to. There isn't. The change is more like erosion. You don't notice the shape disappearing until you realize you don't remember what it used to look like. I still wake up at night. Not always at 2:47 anymore. Sometimes earlier. Sometimes later. The time feels less important now. Like it was only a doorway, not the destination. What matters is the state. That moment when awareness switches on and the world feels paused. Like everything is holding still just for me. Or for us. I'm not sure which word fits anymore. I don't feel watched now. I feel aligned. That's the best way I can describe it. Like my thoughts are lined up neatly instead of bouncing around. No static. No friction. Just smooth, steady awareness. And that terrifies me, in a quiet way. Because fear used to prove I was still separate. Now there are nights where I lie there and feel content. Not happy. Not peaceful. Just settled. Like nothing needs to happen. Like this is exactly how things are supposed to be. Those nights feel wrong in the morning. I wake up with a faint sense of regret, even if nothing bad happened. Like I missed an opportunity to resist something I can no longer see clearly. I've noticed I don't flinch at sudden noises anymore. Doors slamming. Cars honking. Someone dropping something nearby. My body reacts slower, if at all. It's like the instinct has been dulled, smoothed down. As if there's no need to be startled. As if there's nothing left to protect. People have started describing me differently. Not directly. Not in ways you could argue with. Just small comments. You're really calm under pressure. You don't seem bothered by much. I wish I could be that relaxed. I nod. Smile. Say something neutral. Inside, I feel distant from those words. Like they're describing a surface I'm no longer standing on. Because calm isn't what this is. Calm implies effort. Balance. Choice. This feels automatic. Like something else is managing my responses for me, deciding which emotions are efficient and which ones aren't worth the energy. I still get tired. Still get hungry. Still feel pain. But fear feels optional now. And I don't remember choosing to let it go. There are moments, brief ones, where I catch myself thinking about how easy it would be to stop telling this story. To stop recording it. To stop trying to name what's happening. Those thoughts don't feel aggressive. They feel practical. Like advice. You've already adjusted, they seem to say. Why keep dragging the old discomfort with you? That's when I force myself to write again. To speak again. To anchor myself in language, even though words feel thinner now. Less solid. Sometimes, while I'm writing, I feel a pause inside my head. Like something is waiting for me to finish. Patient. Unbothered. Like it knows I'll stop eventually. I've started noticing people at night. Strangers. Neighbors. Faces in windows as I walk past buildings. Not because they're doing anything strange, but because I recognize something in them. That same stillness. That same flat attentiveness. That same sense of being present without being fully engaged. Once, on a late bus, I locked eyes with someone sitting across the aisle. Just for a second. Long enough for something to pass between us. Understanding. Not recognition. More like acknowledgement. Neither of us reacted. We both looked away at the same time. That stayed with me longer than anything else. Because it made me wonder how many of us there are. How many people didn't fight? Or fought, and lost slowly enough that it didn't look like losing. I've had moments where I almost feel grateful. That's the hardest thing to admit. Grateful for the quiet. For the lack of panic. For the way nights no longer feel sharp and hostile. But then I remember what it cost. I remember the fear that used to belong to me. The kind that made me alert, awake, alive. The kind that proved my thoughts were my own. And I feel a hollow space where that used to be. Not pain. Absence. I don't know if this thing has a goal. I don't know if it spreads. I don't know if it's even aware of itself the way we understand awareness. All I know is that it prefers stillness. It prefers silence. It prefers when you stop reacting and start accepting. It thrives in routines. In late nights. In tired minds. In people who are used to being alone with their thoughts. People like me. People like you, maybe. If you're listening to this in bed, lights off, phone glowing softly in the dark. If your breathing feels slow and steady. If you feel strangely calm, even as you hear these words. Just check in with yourself for a moment. Ask yourself when the last time was that you felt real fear. Not stress. Not anxiety. Fear. The kind that snaps you awake. If you can't remember, that doesn't mean you're safe. It just means something might already be sitting very still inside your awareness, content to let you call it peace. And once you do, you won't think to question it again. I don't know when I stopped thinking of this as something that might end. There was a time when I believed survival meant escape. Leaving the apartment. Leaving the city. Leaving nights behind altogether. I thought if I stayed awake long enough, moved far enough, changed enough, I'd outpace it. That idea feels childish now. Not wrong. Just incomplete. Because this was never about distance. It was about permission. I still wake up at night sometimes. Not always at the same minute. Not always with the same clarity. But there's always a moment, where the world settles into a shape that feels slightly too precise. Like the silence has been arranged. That's when I know it's listening. Not from outside. Not from behind a door or at the edge of a bed. Those were training wheels. Early signals. Ways to teach me what attention feels like when it isn't mutual. Now, it listens from the same place I think from. And I need to be careful how I say that, because it's easy to misunderstand. It isn't me. But it isn't separate anymore either. It doesn't speak in words. It doesn't issue commands. It doesn't force my hands or hijack my body. That would be obvious. That would create resistance. Instead, it influences what feels necessary. What feels urgent. What feels worth reacting to. Fear used to be loud. Sharp. Demanding. It made choices for me by narrowing the world down to survival. Fight or flight. Run or hide. Now the narrowing is gentler. Now it feels like efficiency. Why panic when nothing is happening? Why question silence when it feels stable? Why wake fully when half awareness is enough? Those thoughts feel reasonable. Helpful, even. That's how I know they're not entirely mine. The last time I truly panicked was weeks ago. Maybe longer. Time is slippery when your internal clock stops arguing with the dark. I woke up and realized I couldn't remember the last dream I'd had. Not just the content, the feeling of dreaming. That strange emotional residue dreams leave behind. Wonder. Fear. Confusion. It was gone. Sleep had become a blank space. A pause. Like turning off a light and turning it back on without anything happening in between. That scared me enough to try one last thing. I went somewhere crowded. Bright. Loud. I sat in a diner that never closes, surrounded by people who looked half dead from lack of sleep. Neon lights. Coffee cups clinking. A TV murmuring in the corner. I figured if anything could break the pattern, it would be noise. Human noise. Messy noise. For a while, it worked. I felt jittery. Overstimulated. Awake in the old way. My heart sped up. My thoughts scattered. I almost smiled. Then I realized something. The calm didn't disappear. It just stepped back. Like it was letting me get it out of my system. I felt it then, not as a presence, not as pressure, but as patience. Infinite patience. That's when it hit me. This thing doesn't need nights. Nights are just when people notice. It doesn't need silence either. Silence is just where it's easiest to hear. What it needs is room. Room created when you stop reacting. Room created when fear wears itself out. Room created when you tell yourself you're fine often enough that your body believes it. I left the diner before sunrise. Sat in my car and watched the sky lighten. That in-between gray where everything looks flat and unfinished. And for the first time, I felt something like grief. Not for my old life. For my old edge. The sharpness that used to define me. The instinct that said this matters and this doesn't. The part of me that flinched, questioned, resisted. I don't think that part is gone. I think it's just quiet. Covered. Smoothed over like a scar you forget about until someone touches it. That's why I'm ending this now. Not because there's a final confrontation. Not because I escaped. But because this is as honest as I can be without lying to myself. If you're waiting for a warning about a shadow in your hallway or breathing behind your door, I don't have one. That phase doesn't last. What I can tell you is this. Pay attention to the nights when nothing happens. The nights when you wake up and feel calm instead of afraid. The nights when the silence feels organized. The nights when you don't feel watched, because watching implies distance. If you ever catch yourself thinking, this isn't so bad. If you ever feel relief at the idea of letting go, of not reacting, of not caring as much. Pause. Not to fight. Just to notice. Because the moment you stop noticing altogether, there's plenty of space for something else to settle in. And it won't feel like an invasion. It'll feel like rest. If tonight you turn this off and roll over and sleep deeply, all the way through until morning, I hope that's exactly what it is. Just sleep. But if you wake up and the calm feels a little too complete, if your thoughts feel aligned in a way you don't remember earning, if fear feels unnecessary, don't rush to name it peace. Sometimes peace is just what silence calls itself when it's finished rearranging you. This is where I stop talking. Not because it asked me to. Because I'm not sure how much longer the urge to explain will feel important. And that scares me enough to end on my own terms. For now.